trump.com/pierce. Yeah, I was about to ask you about Trump, because obviously, famously, before the election, he said he'd resolve this in 24 hours. Clearly, Putin was not prepared to go along with that timescale, but he has started talking in a more critical way about Putin, saying he's gone crazy and so on. It seems to me that Trump's patience is running pretty thin with Putin. But the question then becomes, what does he do to force pressure on Putin? Is it financially? Now, I read an interesting report last week that actually, despite all the sanctions, the American kind of war economy isn't doing too badly. It's not really punishing them enough to change their plans.
Yeah, the Russian war economy, clearly, I agree.
Right, so that isn't really working. So sort of more of that doesn't seem to be the answer. You know, he's not going to put American boots on the ground. Where should that pressure be applied, do you think, which would put maximum actual pressure on Putin to come to the ceasefire table?
So Biden tried the stick for a couple of years, gave a lot of weapons to Ukraine, was in lockstep with NATO, put a lot of sanctions on the Russians, and it didn't work, didn't do anything to convince Putin he needed to stop or slow down. Trump tried the carrot, reached out to Putin, said he'd go to the Kremlin for Victory Day, said he'd take off sanctions, said he would invest in critical minerals with the Russians in the Arctic and other places, would coordinate on national security. All Putin had to do was accept a ceasefire like the Ukrainians had, and the carrot didn't work either. And you're right, Trump is pretty frustrated. But I think that Trump's frustration, which a couple months ago might have led to, that's it, I'm out, I'm not involved anymore, no more support for Ukraine. That's not where Trump is today. The fact that Zelensky has caved to Trump's pressure, that's where Trump has had success, and accepted a ceasefire with no preconditions, and accepted a critical minerals deal that the Ukrainians didn't want to sign. Now Trump can say, when he comes to the NATO summit in the coming weeks, look how much more money the Europeans are putting into Ukraine. Look how much more they're spending on defense. Look how much the Ukrainians are not taking advantage of me. This isn't, just the Americans giving them taxpayer dollars. This is the Americans interested in defending our economic interests going forward. So we're going to continue to provide intelligence to Ukraine because we want to defend that. We're going to continue selling weapons to the Europeans and to the Ukrainians.